There's a fundamental problem when the characters in a scene read their lines like a hive mind when they are supposed to be human. This was my first major problem with Mission Impossible 7. The 7-minute hunt for Red October beginning was odd, but fine, even if it easily could be cut down to 5 minutes. The next 4.5-minute food delivery scene was just poor pacing, trying to introduce a theme that breaks the very core of the IMF that also should have been 2 minutes shorter. And the John Wick 4 desert horse chase followed by a pointless pirate sniper was not great, but okay. Ilsa Faust wanted an eye patch for some reason. But it was the 12.5-minute long, mostly unnecessary exposition dump that broke the movie. Cutting 6 minutes from the scene makes it better, but the fundamental flaw is still there. Nothing filmic happens. People deliver their lines as if an AI from 2020 were reading them. And cuts and camera angles are random and unmotivated. There's a great video about blocking from CinemaStix that contrasts so sharply with this terrible sequence, thinking back on it completely yanked me out of the film. Granted, the ending of the scene into the credits was fun, but another problem reared its ugly head. The characters in this movie say things they shouldn't. ThisGuysEdits has mentioned this multiple times, I believe. I'll include a link to an interview covering 5 common problems with student films. This one is number 3. Kittredge saying, "of course," when looking at his doppelganger is amateur at best. Cut the line of dialogue, and the answer to, "and just how do you plan on getting out of here?" is so much better. Mission Impossible 1 starts with a faked interrogation, echoed brilliantly in Fallout, where the ticking bomb is that a woman on their team could die if it takes too long. Mission Impossible 2 begins with a man injecting himself with a something that will kill him within 20 hours, providing us with tension. Mission Impossible 3 starts with an explosive charge in Ethan's head and a woman, we later learn his wife, getting murdered in front of his eyes while he is powerless to save her. Ghost Protocol begins with a special agent running from a borked mission and getting taken out by an assassin. Rogue Nation? Ethan hanging off a plane. Fallout, a nuke going off at Ethan's wedding. 7, a Russian submarine. It just doesn't fit the mold. And I'm not here to say that movies need to copy-paste themselves, but if you're going to break the pattern, it needs to be on brand. While the scene eventually gets somewhere, it never has the stakes of a Mission Impossible movie, maybe because no one from the IMF is involved in any way. Speaking of stakes, in attempting to get his mission in Rogue Nation, Ethan again endures watching a girl be murdered before his eyes while powerless to save her. Contrast that with this film. A man, uncertain, attempts to hand over a package before properly verifying who Ethan is. We learn it's because he's brand new to the IMF. The only reason this is here is to set up the concept of making a choice to join the IMF to escape a past life. This ruins every IMF character, changing them from selfless defenders of humanity who go beyond what is possible to get a job done, to people who came to the end of their ropes and signed their souls over to the government in exchange for jail time? The electric chair? Whatever the veiled threat could be, it would not keep a man like Ethan, let alone Luther, in play. And you want me to believe that Benji was once a most wanted or something? It makes no sense. And again, ruins the characters I've always rooted for. And the movie doesn't get better. There's an airport heist that was at least 25% too long. A gruelingly slow car chase that lasts almost a quarter of an hour. And it's slow because Ethan isn't chasing professionals. He's trying to save a woman who constantly crashes the vehicles we're in. The film has to show Ethan purposely slowing down to ensure he doesn't overtake her. Again, this can be improved a little with editing. But this sequence isn't Mission Impossible for other reasons. In transporter movies, a skinny female villain wearing absurd makeup makes sense. It's also a franchise where handcuffing your protagonist to a steering wheel makes for awesome Jackie Chan style action. I love it. This movie? Deus Ex Machinas his team in a van out of nowhere. It's awful. And I also recently watched Fast X, where we had a chase down the exact same staircase, so I felt like I was in that movie too. Especially when the tiny car gags kept slowing down the plot. The foot chase and fights sequence made little sense. How did Grace run through the labyrinth of a city only to end up at the exact bridge where the bad guy was waiting for her? I saw nothing to indicate that the AI was directing her to end up there. And while I appreciated seeing Ilsa's skills countered, the choreography and editing made me very confused as to why she always moves so close to her opponent as to render her sword advantage useless. And I don't know how you interpreted the end of that bit, but it made me feel like I was watching Han Solo in another 7th installment film. I don't have the time or energy to break down the 52-minute train sequence that finishes out this film. My biggest complaint is that the stunt is not very stuntish. Apparently, speed flying is dangerous, but it certainly didn't look like it, and nothing in the movie made me think that was the dangerous part of the mission. In fact, the fact that we cut away from it further emphasizes how little that part emotionally matters. The big moment in all the trailers is going over a cliff on a motorcycle. And I get that was challenging to film properly, but there are tons of base jumping videos on YouTube. There's even a fun one of a guy taking his dog along, which means this stunt didn't feel dangerous or even look exciting. It was a cool marketing image, like Rebecca Ferguson with an eye patch, but it wasn't even a high-altitude jump into a lightning storm. Finishing out with a 2-minute Kittredge voiceover was also not very meaningful, but by then, I'd been long out. How about you? Did you simply have a good time? I'm glad. Did something else rub you the wrong way? And as many others have said better than I can, there are so many factors that go into making movies. I know how difficult it is, and you can go watch my short films and see how, well, not great I am at making them. I think I was disappointed and surprised that the team that made some of my favorite Mission Impossible films and edited together some incredible scenes ended up with this as the final result. I'm hopeful part 2 will be better, and like with the Snyder Cut, it was a fun exercise to see what I could do with tightening sequences that already exist. Thanks for watching.